So this is the mini glam palette. It has 1, 2, 3 broken eyeshadows in it. So I am going to be working on this in 2024 to try and get it used up. Just for the simple fact that it has broken eyeshadows in it, and yeah, just try and get it used up. This is the mini retro palette. It is beautiful. It is stunning. Love it. We have the mini star palette. Again, this is really, really lovely. I love the shimmers in it. I know that these are from the star palette. I believe like these are all shades are in the star palette, I think, but whatever. It's nice to mix these sort of shimmers and things with other palettes. We have the mini gold palette. Again, beautiful. I love the way Natasha Denona does greeny golds. Greeny golds are like life for me. Greeny golds, khaki greens, greeny blue shifts. Love them, love them, love them. And then we have the cranberry palette, which again is gorgeous. I can't wait to get some more use out of it. So I have all my midi palettes here. First of all, we have I Need a Nude. It is stunning. It is gorgeous. Looking forward to playing with it so much more. We have the Yucca palette. Gorgeous greeniness, and this is like the dupe for the Juvia's Place Tribe palette, just in this little segment here. Gorgeous. We have the My Dream palette. Again, beautiful. I'm gonna say beautiful, gorgeous for every single palette I show you here. We have the Retro Glam palette. Again, so pretty. We have the Retro palette, Pinky Gorgeousness. We have the Bronze palette, one of the first Natasha Denona palettes I ever bought. Still so beautiful. We have the Zendo palette, has a mixture of warms all the way through to bluey greens. We have the Love palette, which I believe is the first Natasha Denona palette I bought, and it is still so beautiful to me. We have the Sunrise palette, again, one of the earlier ones that I purchased. Once I finally gave in and bit the bullet and bought one, it just kind of became a snowball effect, really. But these are beautiful, beautiful tones. And last in the midi size, we have the Glam palette. And there is the Glam palette, probably the closest to a cool tone palette that I'm willing to go. I have this beauty, the Metropolis palette. I wish Natasha Denona would do another palette like this with all of these shades. That would just absolutely be awesome. I've seen lots of palette combinations on Instagram filling up this case with different eyeshadows that look beautiful, so it's not like there's a shortage of inspiration to do it, and there's clearly demand for it too. We have the Lila palette, which is the one I wanted for the the big ones are the ones I wanted the longest time, but this is the ones that made me think, you know, maybe this brand isn't so gimmicky. But yeah, there's the Lila palette. We have the Cirque de Loco palette, these beautiful jewel tones. They are beautiful and stunning. We have the Biba palette, again, beautiful. Could quite happily do everyday looks out of here, no problem. The highly coveted gold palette, it is sad that this is discontinued, but at the same time, the thing that makes this so beautiful are like this shade, this shade, this shade, and this shade. 4 shades are what makes this stunning. All of the other shades you could probably get from other palettes quite easily, but those 4 shades are just amazeballs. Just amazeballs. So yeah. We have the Sunset palette, which again, beautiful. Actually dabbled a lot more into these more what I would have considered generic mattes before, but they work so beautifully together. Using like the yellow and the red and this peachy sort of apricot color. They're just, it's stunning. Again, this is one of those palettes that I could easily work in just inside this palette and create several different looks and be happy for like a week, 2 weeks. Because I've got this brown that's dark enough to be a liner. You could do a brow bone highlight with ice gold, and everything in between is beautiful. You might want to filter in like a matter brow bone highlight, but that's probably about it. And then we have the Trio Chrome palette, which I haven't played about with as much as I would like. Again, as I'm getting more back into makeup, these sort of muted tones are perfect for transitions in coloured looks, mixing with neutrals to create a different not texture, there's a word I'm looking for, but it's escaping me. Different depth, a different vibe. Still not the word I'm meaning to use, but I can't think of the word I want to use. Then we have the Star palette. It is beautiful. If I'd picked this up when I had originally wanted to, this would have so many massive dips in it and probably pan and all kinds of things. But yeah, I'm glad I was able to pick this up because I thought it was long discontinued. But it's still available in some places. And then we have the Big Daddy palettes. We have the purple blue palettes. This is the purple blue palette. I love the shades in here, especially like Calypso Blue, Piggy. These matte purples are super beautiful. I mostly focus on this section, like the purpley brownie side. As I say, only just starting to become more comfortable with blues, but now that we are there, I might dabble in this side a bit more. And then we have the green brown palette, which again is just an obvious blatant favourite because of all these gorgeous warm browns and greens. Oh, it's stunning. I really need to play with my Natasha Denona shades so much more. I might make a few palettes throughout the year, just to, well, I'll be doing the No Pan Left Behind, so we'll be at least using them once throughout the year at least. And then this is a selection of single shadows. I'm not going to lift them up and go through all the names. I might do a separate video just on my single shadows and name them all, but for now it's just a mixture of Makeup Geek, Glam Shop, Colourpop and Coastal Scents. So I have a few larger palettes that are beside my desk, so I'm just going to show you these because they're here. We have the Morphe 350 palette, which was in my Pan That palette last year. I gave it a good hard try. I did. I gave it a good solid try, and thoroughly enjoyed using it. So I might work it into a project in the future. Then we have the Ultimate Utopia palette from NYX, which again I've been used a lot lately. Well, used a lot this year. It is beautiful. Glad to have it. I'm going to keep hold of it. We have the Stacey Marie Carnival 3 Love Tahiti, which is just beautiful. So many stunning colours, so many stunning shimmers. Have not had a chance to dabble in this too much, but will hopefully soon. We have the Morphe Dare to Create palette. Beautiful neutrals, pops of green, blue, purples, reds. It's just everything I would want in a palette in here. These browns in the middle, however, are slightly redundant, but I can think of ways of integrating them into other palettes to make them useful. This is the It's a Gem palette, all of the purple, pinky, icy goodness, and I know that these pans are quite shallow and they're sort of like a sheer topper formula if I remember rightly. Have not had a chance to dabble into this too much, but again we'll work our way into it in due course. This is the Desert Bouquet palette. I really like this palette. It is again a nice mixture of warm neutrals, greens, pinks, purples. For some reason in the last like year or two I've really gotten into these sort of bubblegum purpley pinks as like transitional crease shades and such. So I do use that quite often. And then we have the Antidote palette by Stacey Marie from Be Perfect, and it is gorgeous. I remember again when they were advertising this that I felt like it was going to be a lot more green. Like I felt like the green was going to come a lot further over in the palette than it does. It is definitely more warm tones and neutral tones, and the greens are just in this little column here, but it's beautiful. I love it, and again wish I could dabble more into it. So No Pan Left Behind is a welcome adventure in 2024. You have the Carnival XL Remastered, which is beautiful and then stunning. And I'm pretty sure this is just the original Carnival XL, but without the face products, if I remember rightly. And that was the one thing that put me off purchasing these in the first place, was the face products. I love these vibrant mattes that are in here. It is very like XX Revolution Extravaganza palette, but I love it, so we're gonna keep hold of it. We have the Carnival Interstellar. This is the 5th palette. Again, when this originally was advertised, it looked, although it was going to be very, very grey toned, but it really isn't. There's a lot of darker mattes in here that kind of make it look darker, but no, don't do that. Smoosh that back in. Oh no. But yeah, it's just these last 3 rows here that are sort of like the darker, cooler toned, kind of like a Xenon palette. I think I've just talked myself out of buying the Xenon palette. It's right there in the Interstellar.
Yes.
Yes, this. Do not touch that. Thank you. Next up, I have my Morphe Jaclyn Hill palettes. We have the original Jaclyn Hill palette, which, to be honest, looks kind of boring after all the colourful palettes we've just looked at. But again, it's kind of like the 350 palette. I could quite happily work out of this and be very happy. There is a user that I've been watching pan this, Monica, I think her name is. I will link her in the info box. She's been panning this palette. More power to her. I've seen a few people pan it and give up halfway through. And then we have the Volume 2 palette, which is definitely a lot more vibrant, brighter pinks, purples, that kind of thing. And it's still got those nice warm neutrals in there. So I've just pulled palettes out from underneath my desk. I'm going to quickly go through these. We have the Colourpop by Bye Bye Birdie, and this is one of my favourites from Colourpop. I've used this a whole bunch, so I could keep hold of that. I have one from Bobbi Brown. This is the Old Hollywood palette, and it is really pretty. I do really, really like it. But I think I'm ready to let it go. So yeah, we're just gonna part ways with that guy. I have my Laura Mercier Artist palette. The packaging is starting to really disintegrate, if you will. And this is what it looks like on the inside. It is still beautiful. These eyeshadows still work wonderfully well. I have a pan. So I have 2 pans in my eyeshadows there. Can you see it? In the middle of in the middle of Fresco. So I have 2 pans in my eyeshadows. That is, yeah. Of all these eyeshadows, I've only got pan on 2 of them. I will keep hold of this because I still think it's beautiful and I still like to use it. And I go through phases of just using it. I have a little duo here from Avon. It's in the shade Ocean Waves. We've established that I'm getting more comfortable with blues, but I already own enough blues. I don't need this one as well, so it can go. I have the Dusk Till Dawn palette from W7. I love this palette. It was in my Tiny Pans. Panned that palette a couple of years ago, and I definitely think if I just focused on this, I could probably get it moved out easily within a year. Even though I've clearly failed to at a point, but I will keep hold of it because I still think it's absolutely gorgeous and lovely. We have the W7 Delicious palette here. It is a dupe of the Modern Renaissance palette. I will keep it for a little bit and play about with it, and it might get decluttered next year. We shall see. This is a little... Oh, it's empty. It's empty. It's an empty Colourpop palette thing. Let's have a look in this Anastasia one. This is all Glam Shop eyeshadows. Again, I'm not going to go through them all because that would take way too long. So we'll do a video on that in the future. In here we have the Colourpop She's a Rainbow palette. It's just a collection of their singles. In this guy here we have my JD Glow shadows, 365, Limelight, Martini, Chartreuse, Unexpected, and Opal. And again, I want to get more use out of those. I don't want to be saving them for best anymore. So I have the W7 Seduce palette, which is their version of the Sultry palette from Anastasia. It is a beautiful, beautiful colour story, and yeah. Again, it's another one of those, only has 11 grams of eyeshadow over 14 pans, so it's definitely one that I could get moved out fairly quickly if I chose to focus on it. I have a few Melt Cosmetics ones. We have Smoke Sessions. It is a green dream, definitely. We have the Gemini 2, which I absolutely adore. We have the 420 palette, which it is just so radioactively bright. It really, really is. And then we have the 27 palette, which is a beautiful sort of mid-toned neutral palette for like everyday use. And here, this Anastasia palette, we have more Glam Shop, and in this Z palette, I have more Glam Shop. I love Glam Shop. If you can't tell, I love Glam Shop. I love using their eyeshadows to build my own palettes. I kind of was hoping to replace my Coastal Scents collection with Glam Shop at some point. I have 2 palettes here that I'm going to get rid of. This is the Roxy Cozy Vibes palette from Makeup Revolution. It is really pretty, but I already have so much. I don't need that one as well. Same with this Gold Crush one. It has a broken eyeshadow in there, but generally speaking, I just don't need this in my life, so we're going to get rid of it. the Soph palette. I kind of want to pan it just for the sake of it. There was a YouTuber, Caitlin, I believe. I can't remember her surname, but I started watching her recently, and she's been panning her way through this, and she only had like a couple of shades left. But I kind of want to just out of spite to it, for it having been around for so long. Because it is a really pretty palette. I do love the colours in it, but at the same time, do I need it? No. No, I'm going to pass it on to someone else. I'm going to pass it on. We have the Kat Von D Shade and Light palette. Again, do I need this? Do I need it? No. No, I don't. I don't need this at all. Let's just get rid of it. It's fine. We're okay. We will survive. The Artemis palette from Alter Ego. A love of mine. I love it. I use this actually more than my Metropolis because, you know, the Metropolis is just... I really shouldn't be saving things for best. That is what I'm going to work on. I should not be saving makeup for best. We have the Equalizer 1 palette from Sample Beauty. It is beautiful. It's got a matte with a corresponding shimmer on the other side. So pretty, like Grasshopper, Vitamin C, Queen of Hearts. I love the way they do that in these Equalizer palettes. This is the volume 2. This is actually my backup of the volume 2. I don't know where my actual one is currently. It's about someplace. And this is the 4th Jaclyn Hill little palette. This is Bling Boss. This is probably my most favourite out of the set. I love all these purples. I have some of these stack 'em ups from P. Louise. This is in the shade... Who the hell knows? Health is Wealth. It's gorgeous greens. And this is in the shade Smutty Tones. Smutty Tones. Beautiful pinks. We have my ABH Nervina palettes. And they're all out of order. This is volume 5. It is stunning. It is gorgeous. It is a purple lover's dream. The only thing I wish about these palettes is that the pans were magnetic. That would just make my day if the pans were magnetic. We have volume 4, which again, beautiful. Love this color story. Love these hot pinks. Using a touch of it, of these vibrant colors, touch these neon colors in the crease and transition area, they just add a different dimension. That was the word I was searching for earlier. Dimension to a look. They just elevate it to just a whole other level. And then we have the volume 1 palette, which again, beautiful. Navy, sumptuous dark browns, you know I love them. Purples, rich purples, sort of neutral aubergine type tones. Like anything that's a color that's in a mid-tone like this, to me classifies as like a neutral. It's something that you could get away with every day. It's colorful but not colored makeup like colorful, if you know what I mean. It wouldn't be too clownish to use these colors in an office setting, whereas these sorts of colors could be construed as like offensive and disciplinary procedural inciting, if you know what I mean. But these kinds of colors, they're muted enough to be a neutral palette for me. That's what I mean when I say neutral. Here we have my third Give Me Glow palette. This is the Vivid Rose palette, and it is beautiful and stunning. And this is more of a like an everyday sort of color palette for me. I could definitely get a lot of use out of this guy. My other Laura Mercier palette, this is the Extreme Neutrals. This is definitely a lot more cool toned and certainly fits the aesthetic of the current eyeshadow trend. This is another stack 'em up in Talk is Cheap. And these are some beautiful blues. Really dark, rich navy blues. And this is in CEO. Like if you were a millionaire type CEO or a billionaire. But yeah, beautiful purples, because purple is like the color of wealth and royalty, and yes, there you go. And I have another one of these ColourPop empty pan palettes, and these are ColourPop shadows with Tiki, Ooh, I think it is, Chauffeur, Cater to You, Bratty, 20 something, and I think this is, yeah, Mary Jane. I have another Sample Beauty palette, the Paradigm Shift, and this is more of like a wearable rainbow palette. There is lots of color in here, but it is very nice gradients of color, and it's got some good grounding shades to make it easier to work with. We found the Sweet Shop Bubblegum palette. Yes, we did. All of those gorgeous blues, and oh my god, that navy blue. Guys, we need to have a navy moment. We need a navy moment. This is the Makeup Obsession LA Dreams palette. This color palette, I love this so much, and I think I want to recreate this color palette out of single shadows, because as much as I love it, I feel like this formula is very lackluster. Like, I hear people talk a lot smack about the Makeup Revolution core lines formulation. This is worse in my opinion. Like this LA Dreams, it has a dip in it because I've had to dig so much into it to get any like color payoff going on. Like it's nice if you're just looking for like a sheer wash. They're not very pigmented. They really just aren't. You have to build up on your eyes a lot to get anything to really show up. I love the color story, and I feel like I could do a lot with the color story, so I might make up my own out of my single shadows, but I'll keep all of this just for a reference for the moment. And then we have the Be Perfect Carnival All Stars, which is like the best of the best out of all the stationery palettes. So all of these are duplicate shadows, and I remember when this came out that people were excited because of things like Blackberry. I think it was Blackberry specific, or Venom. It made people very excited to have an extra pan of those without having to buy a whole extra palette of the one they originally come in. But yeah, I love that it is a, you know, an orange row, a reddy pink, purple, a blue, a green, like a khaki. It's really pretty. Again, perfect for pops of color if you wanted to pair it with like a neutral palette and make your own kind of thing going on there. It is lovely. Next up, I have some sort of single shadow palettes. These are the first wave of Makeup Obsessions, and they were these single eyeshadows that you could like pop in and out of a palette. Some of these are shadows, some of these are blushes and contour powders and bronzer, and I'm not reaching for them. I'm not going to use them. I've held on to them for years now, and I'm never going to get to them, so I'm just going to get rid of them. They can go too. my Morphe palettes, empty shadow palettes. I don't feel ready to go through my single shadows quite yet. I might go through and do like a declutter some point in 2024, but right now we're just gonna hold on to what we have. So in this palette was, these are actually Morphe single shadows, apart from these two, which are Makeup Forever's. Yeah, so that's that. And then in here we have some Inglot shadows. These are all Coastal Scents. Some more Coastal Scents. Yeah, see those ones there? Yet more Coastal Scents. And yeah, I have a large variety of Coastal Scents eyeshadows. Lots of different colours and shimmers and neutrals. There is actually a Coastal Scents palette missing, and it's one that's got actual like spacers in it. I don't know where that one has gone. It'll be here someplace. I know it will be. So here we have my stack of Morphe eyeshadows here. This is the 3502 palette. The black broke when I was trying to depot it. It turns out you can't really depot these shadows very well. And these are just all of the warm browns and oranges you could possibly ever want, to be perfectly honest. I have the 350S, which I actually really enjoy. I have another smash shade, unfortunately, but this is in the 3502, so it's fine. And I like the concept of these two palettes. Like, this is all the 350 shades as shimmers, and then this is all the 350 shades as mattes, which is really cool. And when I purchased these for the purposes of makeup artistry, it was a grand idea. This is the Sweet Oasis palette. Again, really pretty. I love like the purpley tones, the pinky tones. I like this, that it has this nice sort of like cool tone neutral section, and then you can pop in whatever color you want, and you can still do some kind of like a sunset eye. You can do like a teal eye, or it's just really pretty. This, I actually really love this palette, and when I first got it, I used it so much. It's the Everyday Chic palette. I used this a lot when I first bought it. I bought it in 2020. We're now coming into 2024, so yeah. It is beautiful, cool tone, colourful, neutral. It's lovely. It really is. I need to use it more. This is the Colour Burst. Again, just like your classic rainbow palette. This is the Hotspot palette, which is a lot of... It's kind of like Sweet Oasis palette, but more warm toned. It has warmer neutrals, reds, oranges, corals, some really warm tropical blues, and a bit of gold going on in there. Again, really nice. We have the 35XO Natural Flirt. It's kind of like the Everyday Chic one, but more of a purplier tone. I haven't actually had a chance to play with this one, and looking at it now, it's darling. It really is. Need to get more out of my makeup, to be honest. This is the Fall Into Fabulous. Very warm toned, very golden. It is stunning. It's like the palette version of A Pile of Fallen Leaves. this is the Stunning Vibes palette. Again, mostly warm neutrals. This was kind of originally pegged as like a purple palette, but it really only has the small section of purples down here. It has really nice blues and this duochrome here. Like, can we? The sort of green, blue, brown shift. If you have this palette, that shade is called Ride or Die. Very, very nice. We have Bronze Goals, which again, beautiful, warm, neutral, goldeny, goldness goodness. It is very, very nice. And then lastly from Morphe, we have possibly my most favourite Morphe palette, and that is the Boss Mood palette. So here we have the Boss Mood palette. It is possibly my most used palette ever. I think the only other palette I've used more than this is the one from Sample Beauty, the Equalizer 2. But yeah, this is just stunning gorgeousness, and I really want to crack it out again and use it a whole lot more. It is the perfect blend of warm neutrals, warm browns, purples, greens, has like some kind of acidy khaki-ness going on, and oh, it's divine. And here we are at my final basket of palettes, my Beauty Bay palettes, and a couple of random extra ones. We have my Sample Beauty Equalizer 2 palette, the one that I've mostly used. This is the original package. It came in with this sort of oil slickness to it. So beautiful. But here is how mine looks. It has had a lot of use. And as I've mentioned before, there are still shades in here that I haven't touched. And I've gone and bought back above it. I know, I'm crazy. But yeah, it is beautiful. Other ones that are not Beauty Bay palettes are these Makeup Revolution color books. This is the shade 5. These are all greens. We have a matte side, greens and blues, and then the same colors in shimmer form. This is the shade 03, which has, you know, your oranges and reds. So nice. The 01, which is all grayscale, silvers and blacks. Xenon, eat your heart out. The 02, which is all your peach mattes and browns and all your champagnes, golds and bronzes. And then we have 04, which has all your pinks, purples, lilacs, lavenders. They're just so nice. Do I need them? No, probably not. They are still good, so I am going to keep them for now. Now we have my Beauty Bay palettes. This is the Nikkie Tutorials palette. I don't know if this actually has a name. I think it's just called the Nikkie Tutorials palette. I've used a few of the shimmers, a few of the mattes. I know this is a beautiful palette, I just haven't had a chance to play with it too much. We have the Sunset Horizons palette, which is really nice. It has some lovely bright colors, some good shimmers. My biggest thing with by Beauty Bay is the shimmer formula. The shimmer formula is outstanding. We have the Wilderness palette, which is the one that really kicked off for me. All these greens, the reds, those beautiful shimmers. Absolutely love this palette. Need to use it so much more. We have the Dark Fantasy palette, which was their Halloween release back in 2022. I love all the individual colours, and but I was a bit worried about how to integrate them into my own makeup use, especially with colours like this. Specifically, it's a weird thing. I like zone in on a colour and then it just throws me off the entire palette. But now I am more sort of clued up on how to use this sort of sagey green. It's not really a problem anymore. We have the new Mood palette. Again, it has all these gorgeous colours, these beautiful green reflective shimmers. Again, it has like these kind of like mid-tone colours that kind of put me off a bit, but then that was when I twigged in my brain that I shouldn't be letting individual colours throw me off an entire palette, especially when the rest of it is so lovely. We have the new Romantic palette, which I adore this. I wish this was permanent because it has all these gorgeous mattes, the gorgeous shimmers, the mix of like the baby pinks with the mulberries and the wine tones, and it's just everything is so stunning. I have the small version of the Midnight palette. As I've mentioned several times, not a huge fan of blues, so I didn't really want a palette that was half blues, but these blues are quite nice. They are quite nice. The purples are lovely as well. I did contemplate maybe possibly just getting the big size Midnight, but I have enough purples in other palettes to keep me happy. And then we have the Berries palette. This is a small version. It is gorgeous. I love it. But I also have the big Berries palette, which I'll show you in a minute. We have the Age of Opulence, which again, I haven't had a whole lot of use out of. This was the Christmas palette of 2021. It has gorgeous shimmers, shifties. It has gorgeous purples in here, the teals, the navy blue. It is really, really nice. We have the Love Notes palette. This was another Valentine's release that they came out with. Again, it is beautiful. It's kind of like the new Romantic, but softer and more like whimsical. But again, it is really, really pretty. And by golly, those shimmers, they get me all the time. And then we're on to the big 42 color palettes. This is the Jade palette. It is crazy. It is a mishmash of color, but I love this. I am not a Little Mix fan. I'm not particularly sure which one Jade is in Little Mix, but she can pick colors. This is a very pretty palette. I've used most of the shades in here, and I've got a few dips going on some of the shimmers, and this shade, Angel of the North, this rich deep red, it's beautiful. An Alien, that's another favourite in here. But yes, there is that. Keeping. We have the Fiery 2.0, which I haven't used a whole lot. It is a beautiful neutral palette. It definitely isn't quite as outrageous as I thought it was going to be when I saw it on the website. It definitely looked a bit more, had more oomph to it, but it is still quite crazy. It has all these like neutrals, but then it has these really bright oranges, this yellow row, this red pinky row, and these sumptuous darker shades in the bottom. It still packs a punch, but at the same time, the way it was sort of marketed, you kind of expected a bit more oomph out of it, a bit more of the redness. But yeah, it is still such a pretty palette, and I'm so glad to have it. We have the big earthy palette. It is gorgeous. It is like the Wilderness palette on acid. All of these shimmers, this is probably my most favourite selection of shimmers out of any of the palettes I have from Beauty Bay. But yeah, it has several like Natasha Denona dupe type ones. It is so pretty. It is so, so pretty. I need to play with it more. I have the neutral palette, which again, I need to play with a lot more. It's very much like Natasha Denona's retro palette, sort of like the retro glam palette, but done on a much larger scale. Again, it has gorgeous, 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 gorgeous shimmers. It has really nice undertoned mattes. It is neutral, but it's still quite warm, if that makes sense. It pulls, is some like grey tones, like warmer greys, mauves, but the browns and things, they're still like peaches and terracottas and more warmer toned browns. And then lastly, we have the large size of the berries. I showed you the 16 pan. This is the big size one. It has like really nice bright reds, lots of deep purples, really nice yummy shimmers, and it has this gorgeous shimmer cloud, which again, very much like the Amrezy palette. I'm pretty sure this is in the 16 pan as well. And yeah, that is the last palette that I have to show you today. As far as I'm aware. These are all the ones I can locate at the moment, although as I said, things are a bit up in the air, having not long moved, and things are still a bit packed up, and still trying to organise things, and I'm not sure where I want to store my palettes because we have an exterior wall where my desk is, and I don't want anything getting cold or damp. So yeah, trying to work all that out. So if anyone has any suggestions, let me know. But I hope you guys enjoyed this potentially ridiculously long video. It's taken me over the course of 3 days to film this, just in chunks. So yeah, it's gonna be a daunting task to edit, but it'll be worth it. So I will leave this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.